I'm making this video because I get asked a lot of questions. A lot of these are going to be kind of basic, nothing country specific, but this is really for someone that is a first time traveler or stepping outside the comfort zone for the first time. We're all there once, and I think for all of us it was a little scary. I know personally, I wish I had the information I know now. I didn't have anything really to go on, and I just kind of stepped into the unknown. Some of the answers you may hear may surprise you or be exactly what you thought. But generally, from what I hear from people, the world really isn't as scary out there as what they first thought. Now, to some people, this may be kind of a ridiculous question, but seriously, those who haven't ever stayed in a hostel may not know. So, a hostel is kind of like a hotel, but it's cheaper, usually more community oriented. Very few people to provide amenities or take care of you or anything like that. There's actually a huge range of the quality of hostels. I've stayed in some that had swimming pools, and I've stayed in some where it was really dirty and there were bugs. Price isn't always a factor of telling how nice a hostel is going to be. I usually stay in ones that are about $8 to $10 a night, and depending on where you are in the world, that's either going to be high or low. The one I have in China that I'm going to be staying at is about $8 a night for a 8 room community or an 8 bed community room, and I think it is about $20 a night for a single room. So if depending on your comfort level, you may want the community room or the single room. Single rooms are nice. Sometimes I get those because I get a little tired of being around people all the time. I need a break. I just want to zone out for a day or two. And $20 really is not much in America. You usually can get rooms at the cheapest around $80, all the way up to depending on you know like how many stars of a hotel, like $400 a night. But hostels are a great way to travel the world. And if you don't like it, you can always kind of up and leave. They're pretty informal. Um, you don't get a lot of amenities. You usually just get a bathroom, shower, your room. Sometimes they have kitchens. Sometimes they provide little services like breakfast. Let's see. That also brings up etiquette of hostels. If you do go to hostels, this is not a hotel. Don't expect them to clean up after you. Please clean up after yourself. It really makes the lives of everyone else around you easier. If there is a kitchen and you do use their dishes, please wash the dishes and put them away because they may not have the time to do it, and it's it's really just a basic courtesy type thing. Also, depending on the culture, will determine what kind of hostel you're in. They're not all to Western standards or anything like that because they're not all in Western countries. Um, but it is a good place to meet people. I think the whole reason I use hostels, even if there are cheaper hotel rooms, is so I can meet people and see what other people are doing. So the other question I get, and I guess it's more of a comment than a question, but I hear this all the time, is are they like the movie Hostel? Or I get the comment, "Oh, you're gonna get killed like in the movie Hostel." I've never actually seen the movie, but I have seen previews, and as you can see, I've never been killed in a hostel. Sorry. I don't know anyone that has, or have been warned about any super dangerous hostels. The only thing I would warn you guys against is there are certain programs out there like couchsurfing.com, and people use or finding people on Craigslist. For the most part, I've heard nothing wrong with those two, but there is an inherent greater risk because it is people's personal houses you'll be staying in. You're not exactly sure what you're getting into, but I hear the experience is actually even cooler because those people live in those areas and really want to show you what the country is about. So use them at your own risk, but you do have to understand that there is a risk using uh, those those two websites. So just be careful. Now, I usually don't like to point this out, but if you saw my first video, you can see I'm a little pudgy around the waist. You know, you do not have to be that fit to travel. Well, it actually depends really on what you're going to do, but for the most part, you don't. I actually lost a lot of stamina backpacking around Europe because almost all of it was, I was carrying a big backpack and stuff, but almost all of it was train travel. And then as soon as I get to the hostel, you just drop it off and you take your day bag and wander around the city. So I actually I actually think you'd lose a little bit of stamina when you're actually backpacking. Now, if you're doing a lot of hiking and stuff, yes, you should have some level of fitness because if you say go with a group and everyone else is more fit than you, everyone's kind of waiting on you. But as far as you going by yourself, you don't need that much fitness. It's mostly a safety thing. Are you going to pull something because you haven't worked out in a long time? Are you going to injure yourself because you're not steady on your feet? What I usually do is I do lunges and I walk around with my backpack. Um, Lift up heavy boxes with your legs, of course, but you'll start working out small muscles that you don't think you really need. Even if you lift weights, especially if they're on machines, you only work out certain muscles. And when you backpack, you find out you really use all different types of little muscles in your back and your legs, and sometimes your arms that you really don't think about or exercise very often. I do a decent amount of running, and I was doing some part time work for a website in their warehouse, and just the amount of boxes I was picking up weren't very heavy, but there were a lot of them, and I started working on a lot of back muscles that I thought were strengthened. So just try those out. You usually find out that you're less fit than than you thought after you've been exercising once you're actually out there. So just do what you can, and it's really up to you what you're going to be doing. In China, I do expect to do some level of workout. Um, there are mountains in Tibet that I'm going to try to not exactly climb, but at least I guess hike up a little bit. And I'm really not sure what to expect. It's also high altitude, so I'm working on my cardio. And well, just anything where you're going upwards, you do use a lot of muscle you don't use day to day. So I would say just exercise for what you're going to be doing, and maybe a little bit more for the unexpected. One thing I used to do, and I'm a terrible person at saving money. One thing I used to do is on vacation, I would have like say 2 weeks to a month to travel, and I would save as much money as I could. I would stay in hostels. I would eat grocery food instead of restaurants. And then at the last couple days, whatever money I had left over from my budget, I would blow on like a 5-star hotel and get super fancy food and live it out. And with a job, that was actually pretty cool because I got to experience like the travel life, but at the same time, I got to experience another side of traveling. Without a job, I definitely can't do that. And I actually find it more rewarding to kind of scrimp and save because the length of this trip is going to be dependent on how much money I have and how much I've saved. I'm probably not going to be eating in restaurants very often or drinking because that really is the majority um, of your expense. It's not just the hostels. Hostels for me are like $8 a night, and that doesn't really change too much. But if you get into a mood and you decide to go eat, meals can become more than your um, more than what you're spending on where you're staying. So it's really depending on your style of travel. If you get actual hotels because you're not comfortable in hostels, it's going to be really expensive. If you want to eat out a lot and experience the food, that's going to be expensive. If you like to drink and party, that's going to be expensive. But my tips to you is to stay in hostels, get food from the grocery, and if you do drink, get something from like the liquor store or whatever, and just drink at the hostel. Usually, I think that's more fun anyway because you can just kind of sit around the common room with other people, and usually that's a good way to know people. Just offer them a beer or something like that. So that is my suggestion. And as far as addressing the actual question, it's really going to have to be a yes and a no. I've spent I spent a lot on vacation on ones where I just knew I just wanted to relax. I had a hard time at work, and I just wanted to blow my money on um, staying in staying in nicer hotels and just lazing around all day. But I've also spent less than I actually do back home in certain places, like when I was backpacking around Europe, because I stuck to all the little rules I outlined. So just be aware. It also depends on the region that you're going to, and you may surprise yourself. Southeast Asia is usually known for being very thrifty, very cheap. But then the I think it's was it Singapore, um, that's really expensive, like a European country expensive. So just be aware. Don't make any generalizations. As you might have guessed, it's really going to depend on whatever country you're visiting or whatnot. But you do have to take into account that some places are really not as dangerous as you think. And let's see, an example would be Kosovo and Serbia. When I went there, a lot of people were saying, well, "What isn't? Wasn't there a war? Wasn't there a war there recently? The place is kind of iffy. Isn't that really dangerous?" Well, there was a war there, but it ended, I think, in 1995, so almost 20 years ago. A lot of the way a lot of Americans kind of view world history is they remember there's something there, but they may not look into it recently, and it just kind of stays in that state in their mind. Not saying that all Americans do that, but that's kind of the vibe I get when I go to certain countries. They'll think, "Wow, that's kind of a dangerous place," but when you actually look it up, it's there really isn't a lot of crime in some areas. Um, Places may be rebuilt, so I would suggest do your research. Don't just go off of what other people say or just the general tone of things. Definitely look it up yourself. Besides, you may think a place is safe and find out it is kind of dangerous. I suggest wiki travel and State Department reports. Those are both easy to find, and you're going to have the experience of the official report. That's going to tell you some of the major things going on in that country, and wiki travel will provide you with each traveler's experience when going there. And wiki travel really gets into a lot of little details about criminal elements, what kind of crimes happen there. Is it just going to be robbery or is there assault, murder? Is it safe for gay and lesbians because of a cultural deal? Are the police there corrupt? Are you going to find a lot of problems because of your race? It's it's a pretty good little it's a pretty good little resource. But like all wiki things, it may not be entirely accurate. But so far, I do believe it describes situations fairly clearly. Example would be Mongolia. When I went there, I looked up on Wiki Travel the situation, and they said there was an ultranationalist kind of faction that was growing because of economic problems and people blaming other Asian countries. That people would actually roam the streets and look for fights against like South Koreans, Chinese, pretty much anyone that was Asian, that was not Mongolian, and some Westerners. When I was there, there was about three different street fights, which is a lot. Usually, I don't see any. Um, so just be aware. I went there anyway. I had no regrets, but it was a good thing I looked that up, or else I might not have had any idea that was going on. A girl in our tour group did get punched in the face while she was riding the subway, or not the subway. I think it was like the bus. So just be careful. anything can happen anywhere. You could be in the safest place ever. It just really depends on that one person what he's gonna do. Just keep your eyes open. I will be making another video on travel tips, but right now I'm just kind of addressing this generally. So don't be afraid to go to places. It will be up to you what you're comfortable with, but most places around the world are just as dangerous or safe as home. I know coming back to America, I've had to make a lot of changes. Compared to Japan, I can't leave anything around for too long. I have to keep things out of sight. I think you have to keep things locked up. So there's always little problems here or there. Anyway, that's where I'm going to stop this video for now. I will have more. If you have other questions, feel free to comment or send them to me. And thanks for watching.